and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Level Up webinar. I'm Dawnleen, Program Development and Implementation Manager for MLI. On March 8th, we celebrated International Women's Day under the global theme, Inspire Inclusion. This theme highlighted that women's participation in society is essential, absolutely essential. The United Nations Population Fund also stated, women are the fabric that holds families and communities together. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, when women are included, we forge a better world. Yeah? So when women continue to live below the poverty line, when they remain unemployed, when they face violence of various kinds, even becoming involved in crime, we see the breakdown of the fabric of our societies and our families. The world is facing many crises, ranging from geopolitical conflicts to soaring poverty levels and the escalating impacts of climate change. These challenges can only be addressed by solutions that empower and include women. By investing in women and young ladies and girls, we can spark change and speed the transition towards a healthier, safer, and more equal world for all. And this was stated by the UN for Women website. So as we continue to celebrate women, and MLI will be celebrating women throughout the month of March, I want to introduce you to a phenomenal woman, Ambikah Mongroo, who will share her story of courage, commitment, and unwavering spirit. So let me tell you a bit about Ambikah. She started her career at Petrotrin as a graduate management trainee in June 2001, with a background in operations and supply chain management. She joined marketing and distribution as a HSE and customer service manager before moving on to become operations manager at Massey Distribution in Trinidad. Ambikah then transitioned to Massey Integrated Retail Portfolio as a director, and later she became the Chief Operating Officer. In July 2018, she was promoted to the Chief Executive Officer at Massey Distribution Trinidad, and in 2020, she became Senior Vice President of the Massey Integrated Retail Portfolio. Ambikah Mongroo has also served as a director for Massey Distribution USA and Massey Distribution Guyana since January 2015, and currently serves on all of the Massey Integrated Retail Boards in the Caribbean territory. That is absolutely amazing. So today, I warmly welcome Ambikah Mongroo. Ambikah?
Hi, Dawn. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so very much, Dawn. You're very generous, by the way. But thank you so much. My journey, so I'll start, this morning I was coming to work. I spend the time with my son. It's the time I get to speak to him one-on-one. When you have a 14-year-old, you really cherish the moments you have with them because they're locked up in the room. This generation is very different. And it was my time with him this morning. He has tests going on, and we were talking, and I was telling him, I have this thing to do. Having my coffee, he's having his smoothie. We're 10 minutes out to school, so that's really the time he gets to tell me how he feels, and etc. And then, okay, I'm having my coffee. Coffee spills over my white shirt this morning. So he said to me, so gosh, Mom, you have this presentation? I said, yeah. So he's there in the car trying to clean me up while I'm in traffic. And I said, okay, so that is one way to start your morning, especially this morning, right? But I was excited too. I was excited to be on MLI's something, and Audra and Dawn knows this, I really, really support. And when Dawn met me 2 weeks ago, Dawn, 3 weeks, I've been approached before, but you know, I said, look, I couldn't say no to her. I said, I'm going to do this. But this is my story, and my story is a long one here at Massey. It's 21 years. I started my career in 2020, straight out to university. Literally the month I graduated, I got an offer at Petrotrin in the field office. But before I go there, I came from a family, one that really pushed me. You know, my father has played a huge role in my development. I'm the first of 4 kids, and it's 2 girls, 2 boys. And in my house, my dad, there was no male or female jobs. We were brought up to believe you could do anything. All 4 of us, you know. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up with the belief that if you wanted something, you had to work for it. You had to go out there. You know, dreams don't work unless you do it. And, you know, being the eldest too, you had the pressures of setting the tone home, setting the example. And I had that. So that was a little bit of pressure too, right? But a big part of it is that want, that self-need, that urge in you, that passion. And that's a big part of my story, that personal motivation. I am the mother of 2 kids. I mean, it's you know, they're both on my screen. I have a 14-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. My 14-year-old really is like 14 going on 18. Keeps me on my toes all the time. But that's my pride and joy. That's what I work so hard for, you know. My family, very close. I come from a close-knit family. I'm a South girl. So, I mean, I know we have people from Barbados, Guyana, Colombia on this call, but where we sit in Massey in the northern side of Trinidad, I'm actually all the way from South. And, you know, going to that story on how I started Massey, I spent 3 years in the petroleum oil company of Trinidad, and I got this offer. I got this call. I was looking at, you know, I really need to move out. I need to get out of my comfort zone. I was 30 minutes from home, you know, all very comfortable. And I started saying, you know, I want something more. I want something different. And I started looking around, and, you know, Massey Distribution called me. So Earl Brudersing was the CEO here, and I was interviewed by him. He called me up, and guess what, you know, this is an hour from home. So drove up, you know, out of my comfort zone. I said, look, I'm going to see what's going on. You know, it's nice and very comfortable where I am, but I'm going to check this out. I'm going to see what this is. Anyway, I started within 2 weeks of having this conversation in 2001. So I've been with Massey 21 years, really long time. February 17th, 2001, 2003, I started. And I have had an amazing journey, I will tell you that. I came in here, I started in HR, actually. I spent my Petrotrin experience was really in the HR department. I came in here to do 2 projects as a project management coordinator. And that evolved. My career changed dramatically over the years. And a big part of it is I decided very early, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to learn. I'm going to seek out opportunities that would allow me to grow and learn from everyone around me. You know, you gave it your best shot. Guess what? I didn't know half the things that I knew, that I know now. I put myself in there. I went after it. I set the boldest of ambitions, and that's how my career started in Massey. Never stepped a foot in HR, even though I spent 3 years straight out to university there. I went in, and, you know, I started on projects, and Earl would call me and say, hey, how about you try this? You know, could you do this? Well, guess what? I didn't know what to do, you know. I said, sure, no problem. I'd go and research it, find out, and I did it, you know. So, you know, that was a big part of where I am. Oh, yeah, where I am today, that really contributed to it. But it's also part of who I am as a person, you know. Career is one thing, and you have to find the joy and the passion and something that drives you every single day. Dawn started talking about women. It's, you know, last week Friday was International Women's Day, and I think a big part of the block with a lot of women is the glass ceiling isn't really set by external people, it's set by themselves, and not having that self-trust and that self-belief and that confidence in themselves to do more, to want more. And I do believe a lot of times the boundaries and the glass ceiling are set by ourselves and not necessarily by everybody. I think when you can see beyond that, it becomes easy not to fall into some of those stereotypes that's out there. And the stereotypes are out there because we allow it to, right? That's been created for women, be it in the workplace or at home. I just think it's a mindset thing. And it's Massey's journey for me and an executive here. One of the things I have really appreciated and loved is the balance it's been having a family and having a career and being able to balance both. And that, you know, I love yoga, I love reading. The book that I'm reading now is actually Never Finished by David Goggins. And one of my teammates actually said, hey, I know you read it, check this book out, and totally loving it. So I have been allowed that space. I've been allowed space to grow and develop, but it's really up to the individual. And I truly believe that. Three of the things that's really stood with me since I have started, it's and really pushes me. It's courage. It's not unwavering spirit and that commitment. And I'll tell you this, courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. And this is probably the most influential one for me, because in any person's life, in their personal, professional, as an executive, you need to have courage, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to say no, the courage to stand up and give a perspective in a room when the different opinions, the courage to walk away sometimes. And this has been the toughest one for me. I love Brené Brown's book, Dare to Lead. And one of the things that stood out is the transparency and the authenticity you need to be as a leader, but it means being courageous and brave and taking that bold move. And this one really, really speaks so it speaks to me in a very personal way, because in my journey, you've had to take risk. You have to take calculated risk. You have to, sorry, I'm trying to move my slides. You have to sometimes stand up alone. You have to stay grounded, and trust me, you have to be vulnerable. And in leadership, it's probably the hardest thing to sit there, the courage to listen to feedback or to engage and get feedback and know you're not going to be told what you want to hear. But that's the thing that grows you. That's the thing that forces you out of your comfort zone. That's the thing that really makes you authentic. And it's a hard place. It's a hard place to sometimes seek out feedback and not be told what we want to hear. And, you know, I've learned from some of the best coaches, mentors I've had here, even at Massey. Support isn't always what we want to hear. And you have to be courageous to be able to let go all your guards and be able to listen and to lean in. And this courage really speaks to me. Even now, courageous in the decisions you make. I'll tell you something. When I took this job as the CEO of Massey Distribution in 2018, I came from fantastic leaders. I was the youngest on the team. And when I joined, I was 28 as a director. And Susan Hammersmith was the CEO then. And every commercial position at Massey was held by a male executive. And I remember going into negotiation and I thought, you know what, I needed to do what they did and how they did it. And I was starting to think, that's the style, that's what's required. And I walked into my first one, and you know what? My gut said, this is not how it's going to be. This is not what I want to do. And courage is being able to stand there or go in there and say, you know what? I'm going to be me. I'm going to do it my way. And guess what? Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And we have to be able to be okay in saying, let's walk away. And there may not be a win, but you have to trust in you. But you need to have that courage in making that call, in standing alone and staying grounded. It is a tough one. The courage to be the imperfect you and confident that's enough. I think that's really what drives some of the conversations I have, the difficult ones. That is what tells me to stand up in a room, even when all the perspectives may be different, to give my view and to be okay with it and know that not all the time I would have to agree or be on the same page, but being okay with me giving my perspective. Knowing it's okay to not have all the answers and opening up and getting feedback, that helps. It helps in your confidence, it helps in your resilience, it helps in your growth. I took various jobs. 14 years of my career have been in supply chain. And while I may have done it at university and specialized in some of that, I never practiced it. I learned it here. I learned it on the ground. I came up through that, asking the questions, getting the feedback, getting plenty tough conversations and pushback, be it from team members or bosses. It was tough, but it was learning. And that's how I learned. I thrive on that feedback, but you have to be courageous in getting it and seeking it out. And it isn't always, like I said, what you want to hear. But it helps build that resilience you need as a leader. The second one that stands out to me is commitment. And commitment for me is commitment to self. In my journey, you have to commit to your development. You can't leave it for somebody else. A lot of times I hear people say, well, you know, the company isn't doing this or the company isn't doing that and they're not investing. I think the first, be it an executive, be it a professional, be it anybody in the workforce, you go in there, you have to invest in yourself. You have to commit to you first before you commit to anybody. If you don't commit to you, it's hard to commit to an organization. And that's one of the things that really stands with me. You have to be able to not just say it, but do it. Commitment is an act. It is not a word. And your personal growth and development really sits with you. It does not sit with some manager, leader, CEO, HR department. It sits with you in taking that time to invest in yourself. Commitment is also one that pushes your boundaries. It pushes that box that you may sit in. One of the big challenges that really tested commitment as an executive in the retail and distribution portfolio was when Massey Stores, and I'm sure you'll remember this, when they decided to go with reusable bags. It was easier to do in Barbados and Trinidad, in Barbados and St. Lucia, but it wasn't so easy to do in Trinidad. And it's cultural, it's you know, the St. Lucia, I think the shopper there was readier for it. The Barbados shopper was also more ready for it. But Trinidad, we weren't ready. And we got a lot of noise. We got a lot of pushback. We even took a hit on sales. And it's tough to take that. But you know, when you're committed to doing the right thing and you know it's the right thing you're doing, it's very easy to do. And that was really a good example of commitment to the cause, seeing it through, not giving up, and seeing it to the end. And we're some years later into this. It isn't all perfect, but you know what? We're on the right track. We know we've done the right thing. We've invested, but that took a lot of staying grounded, staying dedicated to your goals, your values, the big picture, and being very resilient. You need to decide, commit, focus if you're going to succeed. And that was a good example. I'll share another one with you in terms of commitment. I remember we were setting up, Massey integrated retail portfolio, it's the Massey stores and Massey distribution divisions. And in Trinidad, we decided we're going to do similar to what's done in Barbados and St. Lucia. We're going to take on produce, set up a produce facility, invest in it, and we're going to supply the produce to our stores. Well, boy, oh boy, what we didn't know was what we were in for. And we got every stumbling block thrown at us. I sat there and I said, okay, I'm not going to lie. There are many times I said, did we make the right decision? Couldn't get our containers cleared on time. The competition was ahead of us 2-3 days. And there was a team pulling everything out. We had a beautiful facility set up to support, started seeing the numbers drop in Massey stores. The team was here looking on at you. And one of the things, you had to be strong, you had to lead, and you had to show the team, hey, even though I may have had doubts, I absolutely know we're doing the right thing. But stay in that course, being committed to it, not being distracted by the many stumbling blocks. And you know what? 5 years later, we're in a great place with this. We have facility, the produce, it's extended outside of just Massey stores. We're selling to other customers. And it worked out. But we had 6 months of pain, and it was very easy to say, let's wrap up shop and defer to what we were, or revert to what we were doing before. And those are the times you wonder, and your team is looking on, and you ask the question, gosh, is this really worth it? But if you go back to that place of your purpose and go back to that space of why you're doing it and your goals and your values, committing to it, when you have stumbling blocks in the face of adversity or challenges, staying on that course and knowing it's the right thing, it pays in the end. It can be painful, but it stays in the end. And I think for me as a young person coming into management, when I did, I'm not so young anymore, it's one of the things that paid off for me. Being committed to what I stood for, being committed to the purpose, being committed to the path that we're on, all of it. But commitment starts with you. Your personal growth starts with you, and it extends to company, and it extends to team after that. The third thing that stands out for me is this unwavering spirit. And a really good example of this, right, was COVID for me, navigating through COVID. Winston Churchill said, success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Easier said than done, trust me. COVID came, and we thought this thing was 1 week, 2 weeks. Okay, a month, no problem. Nobody knew it was going to be 2 years. Nobody knew it was going to take us this long. And initially, as leaders, we tend to think we know or we have the answers. And I've learned very early on that we don't have the answers. The answers are with our teams, the answers. We have to keep our ears to the ground. Some of the best answers come from there. And COVID came and showed us even more. We had no answers. We didn't know. And that was a really uncomfortable space to be in. It was an uncomfortable space as an executive, as a leader. But when you're grounded and you know who you are, you know what you're about, you know what the company is about, you know what the wider Massey is about, it's easy to navigate. And having that spirit that takes you forward, having that spirit to push through adversity, having to remain firm and resilient, It's so important, especially now where we navigate in so many things worldwide. Staying true to your values and principles, critically important. You have to trust yourself. You have to believe in what you bring. You have to have a strong sense of purpose, staying committed to the end, even when it got bumpy. Being able to inspire in good times and bad times. And during COVID, I remember, food is essential services. So the food and pharma sector were open. I went out to the supermarkets and we had our front end staff there. We had our merchandisers and our packers and everybody. And we did not know how to operate. And we had to pull the teams and say, guys, we just don't know. Are we willing to do this thing together? And it takes a lot to go there and say you don't know. Because I think they expect leaders to have all the answers. And trust me, leaders do not have all the answers. We don't. And we need to sometimes seek it out from the people around us and get the answers and know that, you know what, it may not be the answer you had or you thought, but you have to open yourself up to other perspectives. And when we did that, when we opened it up to get all these different perspectives, we had a plan. And we had a plan that took us through, but it also changed every month and every 2 months. So being agile with it and keeping, you had to keep going. Staying inspired. So you inspire the teams because you did not know. 2 months had changed the requirements legally, 4 months, 6 months, but keeping close to the teams around you and keeping close to the people who are out there and your team members helped in really making it a much smoother road to push through. And I think that one was a really good one. How do you navigate through COVID? Keeping yourself grounded, trusting yourself, that unwavering spirit. Your team looks on, they know it. But nothing is wrong with saying, hey, I don't have all the answers. I trust me. I know what I bring, but I don't have all the answers. And I need you to help me chart this path and chart this course. And that for me really was a big learning in terms of how you navigate and what we need. Sorry, I think. Sorry, it's just my slide. I think it's not moving forward. I'm not sure.
You're on Unwavering Spirit. Great.
Yeah.
It's moved for you, Ambikah.
Okay.
Great.
You're seeing the other one, right?
Yes.
So
advice.
Yeah, so those are the 3 things really, that speaks to my journey at Massey. Courage, commitment, unwavering spirit. Those are the 3 things that have pushed me, continue to push me as an executive. My career evolved from job to job, managing it with a family, doing all of it. Courage, commitment, unwavering spirit. It is not easy, but those are the 3 things that I hold very close and really pushes me even now. What advice I give to aspiring executives? That's self-trust. Many times we could be backed against a door and start second guessing ourselves, but the self-trust, critically important. Resilience. You want to be surrounded by people who will be honest with you. You want to build your capacity. You want to hear the tough things and you want to face, success is about a number of failures and disappointments. And that's how you build resilience. And you can't shy away from it, or you can't change course because you start getting bumpy roads. The other thing is, I believe in failing fast. Fail fast, get over it, reset, and move on. Failure is part of the journey. I've had numerous failures, things that didn't work. I've had numerous disappointments. It's part of life. It's part of your journey. And that builds resilience. It toughens you up, but it builds resilience. Knowing when to ask for help or support, leaning in. I have no shame in this one, I lean in. I have coaches. I've always had coaches and support network. I still have a coach today that I call, I check in, I run things with. Getting that feedback, going to your team, asking them what they think. And they're telling you, hey, we absolutely didn't like what you do, and standing there and taking it, but growing with it, growing from it, continuous learning. This is a peeve of mine because I hear many times people always, what can the organization do for them? And I have said, what can you do for yourself? What are you going to do? You have to expose yourself, conferences, workshops, some of it you need to invest in, that you see something, don't wait for somebody to send you out on it or register you. Do it. Sign up, invest in yourself, read, seek out mentors and build a strong support network. I spoke about that, critically important. And the last one, if you speak to anybody in any of the teams I work with, they'll tell you my personal motto: act boldly, move quickly. You go back to, you fail fast. Okay, let's reset. Let's take a moment. Let's look at it. Let's not dwell on it, but let's move. Being bold is not, it's not, it wasn't in my nature, but I've learned that, sometimes you need to speak up, you need to stand up, be confident in what you bring to the table, act boldly, move quickly. It's my motto. It's one of the things that, with the teams I push really hard with. We take too long, competition sets in. We take too long, the decision doesn't get made. We take too long, families, and if we make a mistake, guys, you reset. You'll make mistakes, but take the chance on yourself. Take the chance with the decision at work. Be bold, move quickly. Dawn, those are some of the things that have really inspired me as a leader, that I keep very close to me, that I could speak to in a real way. And I hope, it can add to somebody here looking on. But thank you so very much, Dawn, for the opportunity to just share this part of my journey with Massey as a whole.
Ambikah, I thank you for being here, for sharing your story of courage. And if you've never met Ambikah or seen Ambikah, I call it as a mighty small bundle of courage. And I like the fact that you were here today and you were your authentic self, and I know our audience would have appreciated what you shared today, particularly the advice that you shared with. And I know a lot of females today would wonder, how do I move up? I'm sure you're going to get that question. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to invite Renee Barnett to moderate the Q&A segment today. So you will hear Renee ask a few questions and you just respond, but those will be questions from the audience. Renee?
Thanks, Dawn. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Ambikah.
Good morning.
All right, our first question this morning. How do you manage work-life balance as a mother with all of your responsibilities? Do you get any sleep?
Renee, I've been fortunate, I've had only one female boss at Massey, right? And the rest have been males. And I will tell you this, they've been extremely supportive of myself in terms of having both. But I will also say to you, there are really ups and downs with that. I have missed, school functions, or my son's, when he started science school last year, actually, this is one that stood out. His first parents' day, and I'm like, the mom has to be there. I need to be there because I don't think the daddy going to ask all the questions he mommy going to ask, right? And I couldn't be there. I really had a work commitment. We had just bought this big investment in the US, and I had to be present. It was set up before I knew when was the parents' day, but I have to trust. I have to trust in the support and the network around me. And I also have to trust in me that I know I can't make all of it or wouldn't make all of it. And they're absolutely for the very important ones. Maybe one or two I might miss, but it is hard. I would not lie to you. It is really hard, but you have to find things as well to balance it with. I do yoga 3 times a week. If it means I have to get up 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or take part of my weekend and do it, I do it. It de-stresses me, it balances me, but it's important to me. So, that time is mine. I read a lot. I love my downtime. I said, you know what, at this particular time, and I don't want to tell you the time I turn off, and I said the hour is mine, but people know I'm accessible, right? They'll call me when you're in operations. So, I was in that job when 3 o'clock in the morning, you got a call and your husband turned and said, oh, geez, really? 3 o'clock in the morning, I need to jump out of my bed, get dressed. There's a fire 2 blocks down and I need to go up to the office. And I've done that. So it is a balance, but it's also, there are times you just need to cut off and shut off. And I've been fortunate to work with bosses who've really supported that work-life balance, and it makes it easy. Family is most important. I'll say that again, but I love what I do. I'm not just working for the paycheck at the end of the month. I totally enjoy it. So there's some give and take, and I'm not going to get all of it right. And yes, the guilt still bothers me when I don't get particularly my children stuff right all the time. But I'm comforted in knowing I'm also working towards building something for them.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. All right, we have a question here from an anonymous person. What has been your most outstanding achievement in your career?
Wow. I think most outstanding is building a team within the massive integrated retail portfolio where we didn't have to go outside and look for talent. And when we moved on, and when I moved on, we were able to put, like investment in people, very important to me, investment in building that talent and that capability. And when you have someone at a warehouse level came in as an attendant and could sit today as a manager or a team lead or an executive, I think that is really, there was a team that came in, the executive team that led here for the last couple of years. I think it's 2018 to 2023 or so, or 2022, I think. It's all homebred, ingrown talent. And I think that's one of the things I'm most proud about.
Oh, that's lovely. You mentioned earlier being the lone female with one other female. So as a female in the boardroom, as a female in the boardroom, though, what have you learned?
So when I joined the boardroom, actually, as a director many years ago, it was myself and another female who was the CEO at that time. With, the thing is, I will tell you about Massey. I've never felt, I was never made to feel any less because I'm female. I was never treated anyway. I can't tell you I've experienced that, and I think that's one of the things have kept me this long in Massey and continues, to keep me going and passionate about the job that I do. It was 2 of us and a team. It was a team of 7, I think, or 8, and it was 2 of us alone. But it evolved very quickly. Today we're like, okay, we absolutely need some more men in the room. And I don't believe in tokenism. I think everybody, male, female, need to get there on their merit and not because of gender. So it wasn't a tough one, but there was some intimidation, but that was a personal thing. It was a ceiling I set with myself that maybe I needed to be what they were or like them. And I learned very quickly, you had to be you. And it was always very respected. So it was more me than anything else.
All right, we have a good follow-up question here, actually, that just dropped in. Do you experience resistance when you are leading men? How do you deal with it, if you do?
I No, I don't think so. I mean, I believe in diverse teams and diverse perspectives. I don't want a team that reflects your style, right? I want people to be able to challenge and create this open space. So you want where, like the guy who he feels the warehouse, the guy driving a forklift will walk all the way to the office and say, hey, I need some help with so. And the managers or the leaders there may be they're male and they may say, well, they're not gonna be like, well, why you didn't come or why you didn't. The pushback is not there. I think they respond very well. They could get, sometimes you might think the ego might play out and they could get, oh well, they're going to the boss or this. We don't have that, truthfully. If they feel that way, they're gonna come and see it. But I haven't had that pushback because this male female thing. No, it's equals. We're really all equals. And I guess that's what I push.
All right, that's great to hear. All right, moving on to our next question. Another anonymous person asking this one. What's the most dangerous behavioral trait that you have seen derail female leaders' careers?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
It goes back to a big part of it is I'm not saying that there's gender inequity in places, right? Absolutely not seeing it. But I will say I haven't experienced it. I've always been treated, I think, very fairly and given the opportunities. But I push that ceiling too. And I think that's lack of self-trust creates sometimes in our mind, or it can create the glass ceiling and the stereotype. And I think sometimes there isn't that inequity, but in our minds, we think it is. And I've seen it derail women actually because of their lack of self-belief, more so than the environment that they were in.
All righty. The next one that just dropped in. What is your leadership style when a member of your team is not performing well or has areas for improvement?
So I don't believe in giving feedback at the end of the year, half year, these reviews. I give it when I see that there's something you need to have a conversation. So it's ongoing. And I find it's easier that way. I also believe in being very open and straightforward, which I do. It isn't always going to land, or the result or the end result may not always be what you want or what you started out hoping for. And if it doesn't go that way, then, at the end of the day, I am sitting in a place I need to make what the best decision for the person and for the company. Most importantly, do what's best for the wider company. So I sit in that space, but I'm a firm believer of giving feedback, throughout, not in spurts. Right. When something happens, you deal with it, you give the feedback, the constant conversations. I think that's a 360 thing. It happens all year. It cannot be. And I think I've seen where we wait too long. I've seen where, it damages the environment that you're in sometimes, the people that you're in. And when you have to deal with it and you wait that long, the impact it's really too much.
Yes, agreed. All right, Sharda is asking, how do you motivate your direct reports?
We have fun. We need to have fun. How do I motivate them? I think you should ask them that, It's easier for them to answer. But, I have to be in a good space. I have to be inspired and motivated and feel passionate about what I want and the end goal and what we're working towards and the journey. And you have to have and set up that journey. You have to have that purpose. You have to have that vision. And you have to make sure everybody's on board with it. But being on board with it isn't always just sitting down in the boardroom and discussing and putting out. It also means let's go out there, let's build relationships. So let's invest in us as a team. And that's something I do quite a bit, investing in the teams, fun, formal, informal, but having that open space to speak about it, to talk about what we're doing, to engage, to get perspectives. The team, I don't set strategy alone. The team sets it. They have to be part of it. They form part of it. They lead it, and they have to rule it out. So how do I think it's integrating, making sure they're part of it, making sure their perspectives, their, getting their input in it. I think that really contributes to having an inspired team, owning the journey and the path that we're on together.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you so much. The next question that we have here, if you could do one thing differently in your leadership career, what would it be?
One thing differently in my I own all the mistakes I've made, and I will make more. I look back and it's really contributed to what I am today. With all my flaws, with everything, I am who I am because of that journey. I'm not sure, and I've had quite a bit of downs and ups as well. I don't know if I would change anything, but maybe if I look back, it's probably leaning in and asking for help earlier and having the courage to do that much earlier in my career. Mm-hmm. And building that support. I think I did it more to the last 8-9 years rather than earlier as an upcoming executive. I would lean in, ask for support, and build that support around me a lot stronger.
All right, thank you. Well, this is a good follow-up one here. How does one go about then getting or seeking out a coach if you're not assigned one as part of your job?
I think having a conversation with the person that you work or who you report to, having that conversation. But there are many personal coaches. There are many opportunities to seek someone outside externally. I mean, I know it's an investment in you, but I cannot reiterate how important that investment in yourself is. And not all the times I would have gone through, have a coach through the company. I have invested in myself and had one twice actually, outside of it. So I think there's that opportunity. It's also speaking to getting networking and see what's best for you. What is it you really want out of a coach? I think that's important. I think Massey has a wide network. We have so many talented persons around. I do think you have, Dawn, I think there are many opportunities for coaches within where you don't need to seek out.
Correct.
I can put a plug here for MLA as well. You can reach out to MLA. We also
you do, right? And I think, I think, that's something, I totally support that, Renee. I think that's something that people, I can't stress how important it is. I wish I had it earlier, like I said. But it's something that I invest in with my teams, making sure they have that.
Okay, great. All right, another one just dropped in. Did you suffer from imposter syndrome at any point? And if you did, how did you overcome that?
I can't say that it did, I think a big part of how I was brought up and my parents, my family, pushing you. I grew up, and I told you I was the eldest child, right? And setting that example. But my dad in particular was the one who was quite influential in me, my personal and professional growth. And, he always said to me, there's nothing that you can't do. There's not a male job or a female job, right? So there have been times where I've second-guessed myself, but did I suffer from that at any point? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I may have had that moment where you start questioning, your abilities, your competence, all of that. But having the complex, no, I can't say I would have had that. But I've had different moments.
All righty. All right. Our next question. As SVP now in 2024, what changes would you say you've seen as it relates to women in senior positions since joining 21 years ago?
Well, I could speak to the retail and distribution portfolio, and extremely proud to say, we had at one time 3 out of the 4 women CEOs in the Massey Group, right?
Mhm.
And even as I sit as an executive or boards on the composition of all the teams, it's quite a bit of females, and I'm very proud when I look around and I see that. But like I said, it's important to have diversity and different perspectives and all of that, but it has really evolved. I think Massey has definitely transitioned, but where I sit in the retail and distribution, I'm surrounded by it, that balance.
Lovely.
Very different from 15 years ago.
Right. What advice then can you share for young females who would want to move up in the ranks in their organization?
Self-trust. You have to trust yourself. You have to know what you're bringing to the table. You have to be confident and not second guess. And I see a lot of that. And I think the first question, Renee, was, or second question was a derailer, right, for women. And I truly don't believe I've seen it. It isn't really sometimes about the environment. It's more about the person and the lack of confidence or the self-belief that doesn't exist. And they cave. And, I said asking for help, leaning in, getting that support, getting that coach, that mentoring, that helps getting you there. That helps with the push. And I think that's a big one.
Then how do you then remain confident? How do you overcome the doubt that sometimes seeps in, as you rightly mentioned earlier?
I think seeking out feedback, getting feedback from around you, getting feedback from around your team, hearing, listening, and listening not for what you want to hear, but listening for exactly what they're saying. And your team helps you, your team pushes you, your team, if you have a team that will give you honest feedback, is so important, or the people around you, your support, it builds you. It builds that confidence, it builds that resilience in you, because you're aware of what they're seeing on the outside. And that feedback is very, very important. Engaging the network around you and getting that perspective and listening into it, quite important, and helping you with your confidence as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, another question just dropped in, so this will probably be our last to take us up to our time. How do you balance planning for the future and being present for your employees?
It's a tough one in the environment we operate. COVID showed us that. COVID showed us every 3-5-year plan went out the door, within a month, within 2 months. And even when I look around in the environment that we operate in now and the economies, particularly in the Caribbean, they're very different. And I think it's always important to have a plan. It's always important to have a strategy. It's important to understand where you'd like to be, but equally important is tweaking that, tweaking your behavior, your patterns, how you see it as you go along. You have to be agile enough to say, hey, let's reset. You may hit something along the way and we need to change that plan again. And I guess for me, it's, you have a direction, you have a plan, you're working towards it, but very open to that may very well change in 6 months and 9 months and 18 months. And adapting to that change and knowing that that's how it is now, that's just a way. That's a way of world, the way of work, that's a way of the world, that's the way of the economy. It's all of it. And like I said, COVID was a great example, but being able to be quick enough to respond to when it comes and not just setting, I guess, detachments, right? You kind of have to start detaching from certain things because you do not know what's coming. You do not know how it's going to change. And that's a hard one because we kind of, especially if I'm in a place 21 years, I love Massey. There's a comfort of, the culture and all of it around me. Am I open to change? Am I open to movement? Absolutely. Will the plan change in 2 years? Maybe before that. The journey, yes, but you have to be courageous enough to be open to that and vulnerable enough to say that, you know what, if it comes and I don't know, I'll find out. We'll seek it out, we'll figure it out.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ambikah. I hand back over now to you, Dawn.
Ooh, thank you, Renee. Thank you so much for moderating. And thank you again, Ambikah, for being vulnerable and courageous in this space this morning as you shared your story with us. To the MLA and IT teams who help us make this happen, I want to thank you. And of course, we can't do this without our audience. And I want to thank you and to let you know that we do appreciate you being here with us today as we listen to Ambikah share not just her story, but the advice that she's given us from her journey. And I really want to thank Ambikah. Loved hearing you. So
Thank you,
at this time,
thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. You know I'm going to have you on again at some other time, so stay tuned. So,
sure. But thank you. It was a pleasure. And MLI, for the team watching, I would say to you, reach out. I think there's opportunity with coaches, mentors, support, training. I think we have it in-house. So totally, yes, totally support what you're doing here.
Yes, you're so right, Ambikah. MLI has a coaching arm and we have regional coaches. So we have coaches throughout the region and abroad. So it is right here. Feel free to reach out if you're thinking that you really need that extra push. So as we come to the end of our MLI webinar today, I want to thank everyone who joined us. We invite you, it's not over, we said we would celebrate women the whole month long, so we invite you to join us on March 20th as we listen to the story of the first female pilot of TNT's national airline. So another phenomenal woman for you, that's going to be great. And then on March 27th, we're going to have a discussion with a panel of regional women. So remember to look out for those flyers. During the month, we're also going to feature video presentations from women throughout the region. And of course, that will be shared via email. Amazing women. So just look out for those throughout the month of March, the rest of the month. And I want to end by saying that UNICEF, in their U report, they remind us to strive together to break down barriers, to challenge stereotypes, to champion the rights and aspirations of girls and women, for their empowerment and their inclusion is the key to unlocking the world's true potential. Yes, and we had a phenomenal woman just like that today. She spoke to this. So with that, until next time, remember to level up. Bye for now. Take care.